Yes, good evening. My name is Wallace Bradley, and I'm the host of the Bradley Report. I'm also the president of United in Peace, Inc. We got a very interesting show today. So much has happened, okay, in the country, in the city, all right? The president, Biden, he met with the Republican senators in the Oval Office, and they want to discuss what can be done with the COVID. Make it short, he let it be known he had not gone below making sure that the people in America get that $1,400 stimulus check. Okay? And something else, he let it be known that he's going to push that plan to help Americans, regardless if they voted for him. He's about helping America get what they got to have. I'm talking about that COVID relief plan and a whole bunch of other things in that plan. We're going to talk about that because the Democrats is letting it be known that they got the votes to do what must be done for America, with or without the Republicans. We're going to get in that, okay? And the Senate finally is officially in control by the Democrats as being in the majority, all right? And we're going to talk about don't be Mac food during this Black History Month by McDonald's, because don't get caught up in the flavor of the food and realize that McDonald's is not being true to helping the black franchise. There's a lot we talked about. But hey, this show was made possible with the help and the direction of the producer of this show. She helped me bring the issues before my listening and viewing audience. None other than the chairman of United in Peace, Inc. and my wife. I got to get that selfish plug in there because Valentine's Day is around the corner. Terry Marsh Bradley. And the engineer that's helping me make sure that I get everything right is Brother Omari. Okay? So with that, I want to say to God be the glory. And Omari, let's go to work. If you pick up that gun and you fire that gun, anyone that get harmed from you firing that gun, that's an innocent bystander. We asking the community, ostracize them, push them out, don't let them hide anywhere, don't support them, and let law enforcement do their job. The code is this: if you pick up that gun to solve your problem, I'm not endorsing violence. I'm saying you're violating the code if you discharge that weapon and innocent people get shot or killed, especially a child or an elderly person. And the community must uphold that code.
He got a shoe shine.
The reason that it worked in the 90s, because everyone was a part of it. Kids, women, elderly, was off limits.
You didn't touch him.
Didn't touch them.
Ostracized from the community, pushing you out of the community, not supporting you in the community or protecting you in the community, so that law enforcement can do their job by apprehending you, and the Cook County State's Attorney can do her job by making sure that you get a fair prosecution. This is so that there's no retaliation in the community because you discharge or you fire that weapon that you're intended party. We all got to come together Those of you, my name is Wallace Bradley. I'm the Urban Translator. I'm the President of United Peacekeepers. We all got to come together to let it be known that Black lives matter everywhere. Regardless if the police shoot somebody that's black, it means twice as much to our community when someone black is shooting someone black.
With at least 8 children under the age of 10 shot in the city in just 2 weeks, some are asking if that code still carries any weight.
There's something that we got to do.
Gator catches up with some friends on Calumet.
That 1-year-old that got killed.
His conversations of late have focused on kids getting shot. He says the rule still applies.
We as men got to put it down and say that still exists. It never left.
We all got a responsibility.
We all got a responsibility, man.
But it never left.
I'm going to call out to all the brothers. You know what we do. Put the word on the street that this is no longer tolerated. Me and Holmes work together and we know how it works. We've been able to help individuals turn themselves in of the community, kick them out for law enforcement to come and arrest them. Now is the time. Just like it was a video from Miss Frazier that let everybody know about the awakening of George Floyd. Somebody got a video, or we need to use our video to stop this senseless violence. And I believe that vengeance belongs to the Lord. And with that, I want to say, to God be the glory. And that's my story. You know, I was just watching that and doing the reflection and saw the homicide rate in 2020. And what happened, it dawned on me that my brother was one of the homicide victims, Brother James Kelly Rooks. But by the grace of God, the individual that murdered my brother, shot him in the back, Mr. Dunmore, was supposed to have been a friend of my brother's, 40-year friend. By the grace of God, he got caught right there on the scene. Had gun residue all on him. Grand jury come down with an indictment. But here we are in 2021. And I read somewhere that we got 51 homicides. In the community, you can help with this. That senseless violence have to stop if we come together and be a family whole. And whoever name is ringing, let them know. Turn yourself in if you didn't do it. But the community is going to work. They're showing us how they're working because the 4 individuals that was responsible for the fireman getting killed got apprehended because everyone came together. But this is Black History Month. There's something that's worse than senseless violence. You say, Gator, what do you mean? Something worse than senseless violence. That is systemic racism. McDonald's now putting on all type of commercials about what Martin Luther King said and what he would say, and because they have commercialized, they was able to buy the rights to use Martin Luther King's name during this Black History Month. But this time, they're doing it to cover up the fact that if Martin was alive today, he would be protesting against McDonald's because of the wrong things, the horrible things that they do to the black franchisees. The individuals that got them black McDonald's franchises, African Americans, getting the blunt, they getting redlined, they doing totally wrong. That's why I and others, including brothers and sisters that got those black McDonald's franchises and those that lost their black McDonald's franchises, on the 22nd of February during Black History Month, we're going to be in front of the corporate office here in Chicago, 110 North Carpenter, from 11 to 12:30, a peaceful protest that's going to be titled, "Don't Be Mac Food." Not food that you eat. I'm talking about FOOLED. Brother Mark, let them see what it is I'm talking about this McDonald's thing. Let them see this video.
So McDonald's is in trouble again with a lawsuit up to $1 billion with a B dollars launched by black former franchise owners. And McDonald's was in fact one of the many corporations that publicly supported BLM. But as you may have noticed, a lot of these mega corporations' actions do not reflect their words. So McDonald's claims they have probably created more black millionaires than any other company out there. The lawsuit, however, says differently and suggests that McDonald's corporate has systematically placed black-owned franchise locations in bad areas and gave the good locations to white-owned franchisees. This is a very interesting case. The claim states that revenue at McDonald's is contingent, and this is very true. We speak about this on the channel all the time. It's a contingent on only one thing, and that's the location that you're at. And allegedly, these black-owned restaurants earned on average $700,000 less than a typical McDonald's location due to being placed in these substandard locations. Now, if you watch the channel, you know that the margins are not huge oftentimes with McDonald's or fast food in general. And just because you make $2 million a year doesn't mean you make any money after paying all of your expenses. Allegedly, many of these black owners had to declare bankruptcy. So franchisees noted that the decisions made became all about the shareholders while the franchisees were left out in the cold. And we see this oftentimes with these huge brands. After they become so big, they sell or they go public, public, and the nice little franchise turns more toxic towards the franchise owners. And we've covered franchises in the past like Subway and Tim Hortons. We'll put links up above where the exact same thing happened. And if you want to buy a franchise, this is something in your future, find a nice emerging brand and ride that sweet spot while it still has a family atmosphere and has not become so corporate centric. Now, what's also interesting is if we look over the past 20 years, black ownership of franchise locations has actually dropped from over 350 black owners in the McDonald's franchise system to only 186 today. That's about half of what the number once was. Another lawsuit that was filed earlier this year suggested that close to 100 black franchisees left while under the control of ex-CEO Steve Easterbrook. Now, Steve Easterbrook, you may have seen him in the news. He was the CEO of McDonald's up until 2019, but he was fired for having what we could call inappropriate relationships with at least 3 fellow McDonald's employees. They found dozens of explicit images that were sent to his home computer from work, including photos of employees. He also approved a stock grant that was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to one of his romantic partners. Now, the rascal deleted all these images from his phone, but lo and behold, all of this stuff, of course, stays on the company servers as evidence. So Mr. Easterbrook was fired and only received about half a year's salary as severance pay, which turned out to be about $675,000. Now, he may also receive about $40 million in stock options and other compensation. Now, McDonald's is suing Easterbrook to try and get that money back. Now, seemingly, Easterbrook is the tip of the iceberg, as another $500 million lawsuit, that's $1.5 billion altogether, alleges that McDonald's failed to protect its female employees at a store level from harassing coworkers. And teenage workers apparently are the most common targets of this abuse, and critics suggest the organization is simply mirroring what was happening at the top of the organization. You might recall back in 2014, a similar racially charged lawsuit. McDonald's franchise owner fired multiple black employees for no other reason than the store supposedly had too many black employees. It's unbelievable. The 11 employees had collective tenure of over 50 years and very solid work records. They were subject to ongoing racist comments and a toxic work environment. Now, when these 11 employees contacted McDonald's corporate, they were told, hey, deal with the individual franchise owner directly, and there was nothing that they could do. Now, this case was settled and pretty much swept under the rug of McDonald's lawsuit history. Subscribe to this channel. We're going to keep you updated on the latest in this lawsuit. We'll see what happens there. If you crave to hear the full version of the Ba-da-ba-ba-ba McDonald's song, that's actually Justin Timberlake. We'll put a link right up there. And our new channel, we just reached 1,000 subscribers today. Thank you to everyone for that. We're going to be posting a lot.
You know, that's what's happening. The Black Lives Matter piece turned into a movement against systemic racism in corporate America and the police department and the courts everywhere, to the point that the young adults realized that something was very, very wrong. And I want you to understand me when I say this. If Trump don't be president, they want to fully understood it. And if George Floyd wouldn't have got killed, it brought it full circle to where everyone understood the racism of police officers killing blacks and getting away because they have killed so many. I want to thank the young adults, the seniors, the multicultural individuals, regardless of sex, gender, party, race, or religion, that came out and voted to elect Biden, the president, and to elect the first woman to become vice president, who happens to be African American because it is Black History Month. And especially with that same energy, helping to elect 2 senators from Georgia. One of them is a guy of Jewish descent or whatever it is. One is African American pastor. Was the pastor of the church that Martin Luther King was from and his father was from. We talk Black history. At this time. Now the Democratic Party is in charge. The Senate approves a power sharing agreement. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Mark, could you play that video right there? Thank you, sir.
It's meat. It's red, white, and green.
Oh, that looks so good. But I'm a vegetarian. While we getting it right focused to you beyond this commercial, McConnell had control of the Senate. The Republicans had control of the Senate. Here it is.
So, guys, the big thing here is that Democrats will now take control of these Senate committees. And when you're in control, you're setting the agenda. And that means that things in Joe Biden's agenda that they wanted to get ahead, that President Biden's agenda that they wanted to push ahead, like Merrick Garland's nomination for Attorney General, can now move forward. You'll remember there has been a holdup on some of these nominees, including Merrick Garland, most notably, who is his nominee to be Attorney General, because Republicans maintained control of these committees because they had to operate off the last Congress because they didn't have this agreement in place. So now that Democrats will take over these committees, that means that Democrats are going to have a much easier time getting things on the table, getting things through. They're going to hold control. So we expect now that someone like Merrick Garland, who should get bipartisan support, will now get to go through the process much easier than when Republicans were holding control over the Senate Judiciary Committee, for example. So that's a big example of what this will mean. It was also interesting, you heard the majority leader there, Chuck Schumer, talking a little bit about this, what this means. He also said that one of the key issues he is encouraging these committees to focus on is climate change. And he encouraged the committee chairman to begin holding hearings about climate change and how they can enact Biden's Build Back Better agenda. So you're going to start to see things move. But of course, Jim and Poppy, we've been following the negotiations about this power sharing agreement for weeks now as he and Mitch McConnell worked to hammer this out. It kind of dragged on, but now that they've got this agreement, things can move forward, and that's the real key takeaway here.
What's important about that?
It's meat.
It's
red,
civics.
White, and green.
We got to understand civics. We got to understand that when Mitch McConnell and the Republicans had control, when Obama was president and Biden was vice president, McConnell was known as the Grand Reaper. He wouldn't let nothing get to the floor if Obama and the Democrats have something to do with it. The individual that she was just sharing with you that's about to be confirmed as the Attorney General was the same man that Obama had nominated to be on the Supreme Court. But Mitch McConnell and the Republicans stopped the president by not bringing it to the floor for a vote because they had the power. And McConnell and Republicans let it be known publicly, one behind no closed door. I'm paraphrasing what he said. I'm going to make it where Barack Obama become a one-term president because he's not going to get anything passed. And he did it. So this time, when President Biden now, come and he say he want to reach across the aisle, he want to be nonpartisan to help, pass the bills that's going to help America. McConnell and them come with that, him and Harmon, we're going to argue about this because we want this to be in there in order for us to give up the rights. You have to give it up because the Democrats won. So when the president say he want to do all this with the COVID bill and all that, he realized that, hey, we won. Biden made a promise to the people. And he wasn't going to let McConnell and that crew that followed Trump and allowed Trump to get away with everything to the point that the Capitol was attacked while they was in there. Even the vice president, Pence, had to hide because they were screaming, talking about hang Pence. Because Pence didn't do what Trump wanted him to do because Pence couldn't do it by law. He could not say, stop everything, get rid of them votes, electoral votes don't mean nothing. And I'm saying that Trump is still the president. Couldn't do it. Constitutionally, he couldn't do it. When they was reading who had the most electoral votes, he was just an individual that got the envelope, and his job at that point was to open up the envelope and read what was in the envelope. In each state, it came to 306 votes or 303 electoral votes, whatever it is, for Biden. Trump he said this. That's going to be a part of the evidence during the trial, the impeachment trial, that's going to be next week, next Tuesday, where they're going to be using it as evidence. Thank you, Omar. Hit that right there, man. I appreciate you, man.
It's meat. It's red, white.
There you go.
Responsible for inciting that deadly attack on the Capitol. The former president's lawyers offered their defense in a 14-page filing with the legal twist. Quote, the 45th president believes and therefore avers that as a private citizen, the Senate has no jurisdiction over his ability to hold office, and for the Senate to take action on this averment would constitute a bill of attainder. So let's discuss this, because that probably doesn't make a lot of sense to lay people out there. And let's talk about it now with Harvard Law School professor Noah Feldman. All right, Prof, you got to explain this to us, because as I do want our viewers to know, you were one of 3 constitutional scholars called to testify before the House Judiciary Committee in the first Trump impeachment inquiry. So people may notice, they may recognize you for that. But as you have the ex-president's lawyers here saying that if the Senate proceeds with the trial, it is a bill of attainder, what is a bill of attainder?
It's a red herring, or at least it's a red herring in these circumstances. A bill of attainder is a rarely heard of concept that goes all the way back to England before the Constitution. And it's basically when a legislative body picks some one person out or a group of people and announces that they're going to punish them without a trial. And it does it by passing a bill, both houses have to pass it, and then it being signed by the president in the United States, or agreed to by the king in the old English system. And that's, of course, not what's happening here. This is an impeachment, which is not a bill of attainder. And in fact, part of what makes it an impeachment is that the president of the United States has nothing to do with it. The impeachment is voted by the House, and then it's voted on in trial by the Senate, and it never goes to the executive branch, unlike a bill. So that's the most simple way to explain why this is not a bill of attainder, although there are other reasons why it's also not.
You've written a very interesting new op-ed, and in part of it you say that this is just a bizarre legal argument. Why is that?
You know, it looks like Trump's lawyers are just doing anything they can to throw around some constitutional sounding language to distract attention from the main impeachment charge here, which is that the president systematically subverted democracy over a course of months, and that culminated in incitement of the attack on the Capitol. That's a very serious charge, and so if you're defending Donald Trump, you want to distract attention from it as much as you possibly can. And that means throwing around somewhat indefensible ideas, like that you can't try the president after he's out of office. And it also means throwing in some somewhat goofy, outlandish language, like the idea that doing so would be a bill of attainder.
What about the defense argument saying that the trial should be dismissed because the Constitution, quote, requires that a person actually hold office to be impeached? Is there a precedent here?
Well, first of all, the Constitution doesn't require that. You can read the Constitution, it doesn't say anything of the kind. The Constitution does say that if you're in office, you can be removed and you can be barred from further office. But it's silent on the question of trying people after the fact. And that's because it was ordinary at the time of the framing of the Constitution to try public officials after they were out of office. Virginia, for example, in fact, had a rule in place that you could only impeach the governor once he was no longer the governor. And they actually almost used that against Thomas Jefferson, who had been the governor of the state. So the framers were not saying that you could only do an impeachment and a trial of a sitting president. They were saying you could also do one of a sitting president in addition to doing one of someone out of office. And there is actually a precedent.
So there is a precedent. I mean, that's very interesting, and you explain that. You break that down very clearly. In their brief, Trump's lawyers insist the former president's remarks are protected by the First Amendment. Are they?
No. You know, if Donald Trump were being tried criminally, he could argue that his conduct did not count as incitement under the First Amendment. And there's a rule, a Supreme Court case called the Brandenburg case, that says that if you're going to be convicted of a crime of incitement, the government has to show beyond a reasonable doubt that your actions, or your words rather, were directed at incitement and imminently caused incitement. Now, that might actually be true of Donald Trump. You know, I mean, if you read what he said as inciting the crowd, and the crowd did subsequently go and commit an act of violence, you might even be able to try him criminally. That would probably be a close case. But that legal standard doesn't apply in impeachment. An impeachment requires a high crime and misdemeanor, which means a political crime, not a crime that's otherwise in the statute books. And so the First Amendment doesn't protect Donald Trump's speech in that way.
Wow. You know,
It's meat.
that
It's
is
red,
so
white,
profound.
and green. It's
And I want to thank God. I want to thank God for blessing me with the common sense to look, listen, and learn, as well as bless me with wisdom, knowledge, and understanding what it is that I am seeing. What I just showed to you and shared with you is common knowledge and truth. A lesson that we need to know, because when I was in 8th grade, we had to learn civics. They took civics out of, I guess, grammar school and out of high school. So we don't know. But now we do. But now we do. That, what the president did, is criminal. But the trial that's happening in the Senate is a political crime that he committed. And they impeached him while he was the president. This is the second impeachment trial. I'm sharing that with you because I want to share something else with you, because I'm an ex-felon. And I got a pardon. And that's been 27, maybe 27 years ago that I got a pardon. But I took that knowledge from behind the walls for paying for the crime that I had committed. And came back in the community to become a productive citizen within society. Because I got civically in tune instead of remaining criminally in tune. What do you mean by that, Gator? I'm glad you asked. I understood civically the importance of having the right to vote and voting, and realize you can't sit on the jury if you're not a registered voter. This young man here that I'm about to show you, his name is Jarrett Adams. Brother that was wrongfully convicted, did 10 years and came out. I want you to hear this here. Thank you, Omar. We just let you know that this show is wrong, and we giving it to you as we get it. His brother was locked up. Now he's an attorney, and he's a part of a legal team with myself and another lawyer to help free this other
to be exonerated by an Innocence Project and then go on to be a lawyer for an Innocence Project. The best thing to do with your anger is to use it as the fuel that drives you to reach goals in life. My name is Jarrett Adams, and this is my story. At the age of 17, I was sentenced to 28 years in a maximum security prison. I was falsely accused of a sexual assault I didn't commit. And I realized very quickly early on, it had nothing to do with the truth. It was about race. If you can't afford to prove your innocence, the court affords an attorney to you. My lawyer convinced my family and I that a no defense theory was the best theory of defense. It was a horrible idea, and that defense contributed to me being found guilty. I was incarcerated in prison. So I was there for almost a decade. One day is too long when you're innocent. I was a kid. I was absolutely terrified. My entire youth was gone. This is when boys become men. I missed out on all of that. I was at the time broken, but when I continued to see that my mother and my aunts weren't broken and they were fighting for my innocence, I decided that if I didn't have the energy to fight for myself, I most certainly could find the energy to fight for them. I started to try to grasp the law. I would get law books, law journals, and read about attorneys who were litigating cases in the state of Wisconsin. So I reached out to the Innocence Project, the organization that advocates and litigates on behalf of the wrongfully convicted. Ultimately, they accepted my case. The court unanimously decided to overturn my conviction. I ended up enrolling in a 4-year college where I studied criminal justice. After graduating, I obtained my law degree and I became an attorney. I had the opportunity to exonerate another person, and it was special to me because it was in the same state in which I was wrongfully convicted. I've now opened my own law practice, and I think that me coming from a place like the criminal justice system, being wronged, hearing the stories and getting to know other men who have been wronged, what better advocate could they have but myself? I strongly feel like this happened to me for a reason. It was necessary to encourage the greatness out of me.
You know, I showed you that because the next piece I'm going to bring up before I get out of here. This brother and another lawyer by the name of Justin Bodis and myself are a part of a team. I'm the urban translator, consultant. Both of them are the attorneys. And I'm glad that the attorney, Justin Bodis, made us a part of his legal team to help free this young man by the name of Marcus Wiggins. Hit that for me right quick, Omar. My man. Claiming a conspiracy, man convicted in 1998 Southside murder asked the judge to toss out the conviction. He's free after doing 20 years for a crime that he didn't commit. The irony of it all, take it up a little bit. Right there. The irony of it all is that the 3 officers that framed him, I want you to hear this, were a part of the Burge crew that tortured him. I believe it was in 1993. He was 13 years old. And he had no sense to tell his parents what had happened to him. Because those police officers back then was wicked. Wicked. Getting away with murders, torturing individuals to confess the crimes they know that they didn't commit, to the point that former Governor George Ryan freed individuals that was on death row because he didn't want to be the one responsible for executing an innocent individual. They tortured him when he was 13. His parents was able to sue those 3 police officers and the city in 95. The same 3 officers tried to pin another murder on him because they were trying to tarnish him because he was suing them. When they come to his house looking for him for another murder, they didn't know that he wasn't even nowhere in town. He was so afraid of them that he had left the city. So the judge said, you can't put this murder on him, but this is what they did. They left his name with the state's attorney. Ain't talking about Kim Fox. Talking about the state's attorney's evil cabal, while Daley was the mayor. They left his name on the witness list knowing that they weren't going to call him and jeopardize his life and well-being to the point that he got shot twice, 2 different times. They wanted him to get killed. Then he come back in 98 to see his kids. They heard he was in town. Still dealing with a corrupt state's attorney that knew the corrupt police officers. The judge was assistant state's attorney that knew the corrupt police officers and knew that those officers was involved in torturing him. Gave him no justice. Sentenced him to 20 years. He's out. He got 2 great attorneys. He got myself as his urban translator. And we helping this brother to get his name clean and receive the justice that he got because of the new evidence. Hopefully, the state's attorney, Kim Fox, once he get a judge appointed to his case for him to have a hearing, will make the determination like she did in the Sergeant Watts case, bad police officer. Another officer, I can't remember his name, but he's Hispanic, bad police officer, framed individuals for murders and everything else. Just like Watts, when you've been seeing in the news the individuals that Kim had released because Watts was the officer in them cases. By God's mercy and grace, I'm praying publicly on this show that she do the same thing for this young man. But Mark, you take it up a little bit. The story, yeah, I want to see the story. Go up a little bit. Right there. A man who spent more than 2 decades behind bars after he was found guilty of murder is asking a Cook County judge to throw out his conviction, alleging that several Chicago police officers formed a criminal conspiracy to send him to prison. Attorneys for Marcus Wiggins say he was convicted of the 1998 murder of Mr. Trigg, I think that's his name, on the South Side, because 3 detectives, Kenneth Boudreaux, James O'Brien, and Sergeant Fred Bulk, who were trained and supervised by disgraced former CPD Commander John Bird, that took in a year-long vendetta, whole decade vendetta to frame this young man. I want to say this before I close, because I got to wrap it up. John Bird got found guilty because of this young man's testimony. John Bird, regardless how corrupt the system was, got found guilty for lying in a federal deposition in a federal suit. They didn't plan on that. He lied in a deposition, saying that he knew nothing about the tortures. That young man, as a child, They used that testimony from that suit along with others that came and testified. Melvin Jones, President, you name them. He got 4 years. Them 3 officers have been involved in a whole lot of torture of African American men, some Hispanic men, and boys. Verifiable, documented facts. I'm glad to be a part of that team. I want to say, Father God, you make no mistakes. I pray that after the 9th, when you get a judge, by then, the state's attorney will know what the case is about. Whether she used a new integrity unit or whether she just read the case and the facts as it's laid. And she make the determination. Now that the young man is free, give him a certificate or say there's no reason to further prosecute him. Because you surely can't call these officers as witnesses. You may have to, I'm quite sure the lawyers may subpoena the judge that's over the case to show the wrong that he did. And make the decision so that the judge that's appointing them will grant this young man a certificate of innocence. And with that, I want to say amen. And I want to say to God be the glory. And that's my story. And hey, like I'm about to get out, make sure you stay washed up, covered up, and prayed up. And if you're able to get in line, get your shot. Because I'm going to get in line to get my vaccine shot.